Reading from Nectar of Instructions for Immortality by His Divine Grace, Bhaktisiddhanta Sarasvati Thakura. Today we'll be reading the chapter, The Spiritual Master. 1. Who can understand the mystery of bhajan? Only the unalloyed servants of the spiritual masters, Sri Swarup and Sri Rupa, can understand the mystery of worshiping the Lord. A devotee who has firm faith in and love for the spiritual master's lotus feet is called an unalloyed servant. The Vedas declare, Yasya deve pare bhaktir yata deve tata guru tasyaite katita hi artaha prakashante mahatmanha. Only unto those great souls who have implicit faith in both the Lord and the spiritual master are all the imports of Vedic knowledge automatically revealed. Svetashvatara Upanishad 6.23. 2. Who is an actual disciple? If I can fully surrender at the lotus feet of my spiritual master, in whose hands Lord Krishna has entrusted the responsibility for my well-being, then I am an actual disciple. It is my duty to obey whatever arrangements my spiritual master makes for me without fail. This is how a true disciple thinks. To think otherwise means our downfall is inevitable. Those who, instead of becoming sense enjoyers, serve the Supreme Lord constantly under the spiritual master's guidance are genuine disciples. Everything in this world is meant to be used in the spiritual master's service for Krishna's service. We will not find benefit if we think anything is meant for our pleasure. We will fail to see that all objects in this world are intended for service to Guru and Krishna. We will certainly become degraded. An ideal disciple realizes this fact and always makes service to his Guru and Krishna, his life and soul. A real disciple sees his spiritual master both internally and externally. Although he considers himself insignificant, a disciple's vision is not low. A sincere disciple certainly possesses the good intelligence to know that he has no well-wisher in this world other than his spiritual master. A real disciple is always steady in the understanding that he should serve his spiritual master. He considers his spiritual master as good as God. A good disciple possesses firm faith in and spontaneous love for his spiritual master. A true disciple accepts the spiritual master as his most intimate well-wisher. He knows his Guru is most dear to Krishna and therefore an object of love. The Guru is his eternal master, his life and soul. A disciple knows that the spiritual master is simultaneously the personification of devotional service and of the Supreme Lord. The spiritual master is dearer to Krishna than his life. He is non-different from Krishna because he is a manifestation of Krishna. It is not possible to attain Krishna's service without serving the spiritual master. Only those who serve their spiritual master are real Vaishnavas and disciples. Others are simply bewildered by false ego. Frankly speaking, they are filled with material desire. 3. Where can we find a spiritual master? Only the person Lord Krishna sends us as spiritual master will manifest before us as our Guru. By the Lord's mercy, we attain a spiritual master, and by the spiritual master's mercy, we attain Krishna. We are given a spiritual master according to our fortune. Different people have different mentalities, and the omniscient Lord sends each an appropriate spiritual master. There are those who desire the Lord's non-duplicitous mercy and who completely depend on him for their success. These souls please the Lord with their simple sincerity. To bestow his mercy upon them, he appears before them personally. To those who want something else from the Lord, who are not actually aspiring for his complete mercy, the Lord sends through his illusory energy a spiritual master appropriate to their mentality. A sincere person never faces difficulty but quickly finds a bona fide Guru. 4. Should we make disciples? Unless we are pure devotees or liberated souls, we should not make disciples. Instead, we should first become disciples ourselves by taking shelter of a bona fide spiritual master. We should then hear Harikatha from such a Guru's mouth and follow his instructions and practice in humility. While glorifying those instructions, we should then become Gurus. Trying to remain forever insignificant on some pretext amounts to self-deceit. To become Guru means to become a devotee of Krishna and to remain constantly engaged in the Lord's service with all our senses. There are no hard and fast rules that tell us we must make disciples, but if the Lord desires it, then a pure devotee will give instructions for others' benefit. Such pure devotees are not selfishly motivated. Rather, their main purpose is to make the insignificant great, to make the godless incline toward the Lord, and to make each person a devotee of Krishna. 5. Is the spiritual master enriched by Krishna's wealth? The spiritual master is the proprietor of the Supreme Lord. Sri Krishna is the spiritual master's property or wealth. That is why only the spiritual master is able to give Krishna. Simply by the spiritual master's mercy, we can attain the mercy of darshan of Krishna. 6. Who is eligible for deliverance? As soon as we forget the Lord, various mundane thoughts and sense desires swallow us. The most merciful Sri Krishna is always ready to protect us from such danger, provided we depend on him completely. Lord Krishna saves the living entities in the form of the spiritual master. The spiritual master is the personification of Krishna's mercy. The spiritual master, Krishna's representative, appears in this world to deliver the living entities from material existence and bring them back to Godhead. Only those fortunate souls who eagerly accept the mercy of such a spiritual master become liberated and go back to the eternal abode of peace. Hare Krishna. 7. How can we achieve Krishna's complete mercy? We can attain Krishna's complete mercy simply by becoming qualified to be counted among the servants of Vrishabhanu's daughter as Sri Rupa's servant. We can achieve such good fortune simply by becoming a servant or particle of dust at the lotus feet of the Guru, who is a staunch follower of Sri Rupa. That is why it is said that we need to become lower than straw in the street. If we wish to become lower than straw in the street, we have to consider ourselves the Guru's servant and serve the holy name without reservation. Gauranga Nityananda, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Hare. 8. Who is qualified to become a spiritual master? Those who think themselves Vaishnavas are not Vaishnavas. Those who think themselves gurus or great personalities are not qualified to become gurus. Those who consider themselves disciples of a disciple are qualified to become spiritual masters. Only one who has unflinching faith in the Supreme Lord and the spiritual master is able to act as a guru. 9. How can we understand Vaishnava philosophy? However learned or thoughtful a person may be, until he takes shelter of an acharya whose qualities personify Vaishnava philosophy, he cannot understand Vaishnavism. The Bhagavad Gita states, Tadviti pranipatena pariprasnena sevaya upadekshanti te jnanam jnaninas tattvadarsanaha. Just try to learn the truth by approaching a spiritual master, inquire from him submissively, and render service unto you. The self-realized souls can impart knowledge unto you because they have seen the truth. Bhagavad Gita 4:34. We can understand the Vaishnava philosophy if we possess 3 specific qualities: unconditional surrender, honest inquiry, and a serving temperament. The teachers of Vaishnava philosophy instruct those who approach an acharya to render these 3 qualities as dakshin. The acharyas are not tempted by mundane dakshin. Dakshin is like a commodity of love that we offer the spiritual master. And an acharya is a spiritual master who is specially empowered to distribute the Lord's mercy. They're like a spiritual general, to use an army comparison. 10. Isn't it possible to worship Krishna without taking shelter of the spiritual master's lotus feet? We must cultivate Krishna consciousness under the guidance and order of Krishna's devotee. The daughter of Vrishabhanu is most favorable to Krishna. Another name for Sri Radha is Anukulyena, or favorable. The spiritual masters are the dearest companions of the daughter of Vrishabhanu. We Gaudiya Vaishnavas worship Sri Radha Krishna. Actually, Gaudiya Vaishnavas are more partial to Radha than Krishna. The spiritual master is non-different from Sri Radha. Cultivation of Krishna consciousness is done under Sri Radha's guidance and in subordination to her. If we fail to subordinate ourselves to her representative, the spiritual master, then we will not be able to cultivate Krishna consciousness or even please Krishna. Rather, we will only dance wildly for our own happiness. By renouncing such adverse mentality, such pride, and by serving Krishna under our Guru's order, we will be benefited. But unfortunately, we have forgotten to satisfy Krishna and are busy satisfying our own senses. Alas, instead of making Krishna the center of our household, we have made ourselves the center and have become attached householders. If we are actually interested in our own benefit, we must take special care during our present life. Otherwise, we will be cheated and will lose an excellent opportunity. 11. Is Sri Radharani the original spiritual master? Sri Radhika, who is the Hladini aspect of the Lord's internal energy, is the original spiritual master of all devotees. She is even Krishna's spiritual master. As her disciple, Krishna learns how to dance from her. Pure devotees belonging to Ras's flavors or moods, other than the Madhurya Ras, accept Sri Nityananda Prabhu as their original spiritual master. But Sri Radhika is the original spiritual master of the Rasika devotees belonging to the Madhurya Ras. Madhurya Ras is the flavor, the mood of conjugal love. It's the highest one can attain in service to Krishna. 12. Is faith in the spiritual master's lotus feet the root of devotional service? Before awakening pure devotional service, we must certainly learn our relationship with the Supreme Lord. The spiritual master alone is able to bestow such knowledge. Therefore, the root of devotional service is firm faith in the transcendental spiritual master. This faith is the first principle on the devotional path. The first requirement any devotee must fulfill is to give up the blind conception that there are many religions. He must also reject the path of argumentation and maintain faith in his spiritual master's auspicious instructions. What is faith? Faith means full confidence in Sri Gurudev's words. We cannot rely on the words of worldly persons, but must trust only Gurudev. Everyone else is a pretender. Therefore, we should give up all worldly topics and have complete faith in the spiritual master's words. We cannot find success in any other way. By the spiritual master's mercy, our anarthas will be destroyed, our desires fulfilled, and we will certainly attain the Lord's mercy and darshan. Darshan means viewing. So we should make ourselves so attractive that the Lord wants our darshan, wants our viewing, and we should always desire to have his viewing. It's a mutual, reciprocal, relationship that we're trying to enter, and wanting to see your beloved and have your beloved see you is a very relishable part of the relationship. Our troubles are vanquished and we achieve devotional service when we approach and associate with Guru and Sadhu. That is why we should remain implicitly on Sri Gurudev if we wish to approach and serve the Absolute Person. The spiritual master will give us the highest good. If perchance we meet a real spiritual master, we must be saved. We must be able to reach our goal. The spiritual master will always supply and enrich us with transcendental knowledge and service. I will regulate the spiritual master. This is an atheist's conception. It comes from the offense of disregarding the spiritual master's order. We must renounce this mentality as soon as it appears. I will not listen to the words of anyone in this world. I will listen only to my spiritual master's words, because he has descended from Vaikuntha to deliver me. We are minute, conscious souls. We can approach the Supreme Conscious Lord simply by the Guru's mercy. We will give up the association of others and return to our eternal master. Although the spiritual master considers himself the Supreme Lord's insignificant servant, we must undoubtedly accept him as the only means by which we can go back to Godhead. He is our eternal well-wisher. I offer everything at the lotus feet of my spiritual master, knowing that he is most dear to God. He is as good as God. I will perform all my work in his service and desire nothing in return. Then I will attain perfection. Yeah. It's all about selfless service. Putting the other above yourself. but not in a perverse material way where we give away our power and our energy and our essence to someone else, such as a man and a woman within a material conjugal relationship. But when you're engaged in a relationship with the Supreme Energetic, who is God, who breathed life into the universe, then there is no loss or diminution when you're giving away your energy. There is only, reciprocation and a charge, such as when you have two charged objects reciprocate, giving energy back and forth, then it builds and it builds. But if you have a relationship built upon dependence, then one person is taking and the other is giving. And that is every relationship in the material world. They're all built upon dominance and exploitation and power dynamics. Whereas in the spiritual world, everything is a labor of love. 13. What does it mean to be happy? By taking shelter of the spiritual master's lotus feet, we become fearless, free of lamentation, and happy. When we serve him, we gain his association. If we serve the spiritual master with body, mind, and speech, we quickly attain his mercy. When he is pleased, we will find that our inclination to serve him progressively increases. This is the highest form of auspiciousness and the only gain. 14. Who is a Vaishnava? The spiritual master's servants are Vaishnavas, devotees who are initiated by bona fide gurus and who have taken complete shelter at their spiritual master's feet are Vaishnavas. According to how well we serve the spiritual master, we see differences in the quality of our service to Krishna. Those who abandon their spiritual master or who are envious of him are a-Vaishnava. They are atheists possessed of a hellish mentality. Those who are envious of the spiritual master are also envious of the Supreme Lord. Actually, they are envious of the whole world. Only devotees who are fixed at the spiritual master's lotus feet and who are free of material desires are pure. A person who is free from the influence of wealth, women, and the tigress of fame is a Vaishnava. He is detached and pure and can defeat the entire world. Yes, so the desire to be falsely honored by others, to attain fame, many followers, this kind of thing, it's the last material attachment and makes us think that we are God. This is very detrimental, axiomatically so, to spiritual life. We should endeavor every morning and every evening, this is what Bhaktisiddhanta said, to beat our false ego with a shoe 100 times in the morning and a broomstick 100 times in the evening. That will remind us, or it'll be a good practice to keep our self feeling lower than straw on the street, more humble than a blade of grass, and in that way we won't become puffed up by the false prestige of obtaining to the Lord's service, because it's the highest thing we can achieve in this world, to become a devotee and to serve his devotees, to be a servant of the servant of the servant. And very, very quickly we can become puffed up and then fall down. 15. Is it possible to please Krishna without taking shelter of the spiritual master? It is not possible to worship Krishna without taking shelter at the spiritual master's feet. The spiritual master is not an ordinary human being. He is as good as the Supreme Lord. That is why the spiritual master is described as God. He is the object of love and devotion. Those who know that the spiritual master is as good as the Supreme Lord are his genuine followers. Such followers are eligible for his mercy. Because the spiritual master, who is dear to Krishna, is pleased with unalloyed disciples, Krishna, his dearmost friend, also becomes pleased with them. Just consider how Hari, Guru, and the Vaishnavas are placed in succession. The spiritual master sits in the center, placing the Supreme Lord and the Vaishnavas on his lap. By firmly catching hold of the spiritual master's lotus feet, we will automatically receive the mercy of the Lord and his devotees. If the spiritual master is pleased, Sri Hari and the Vaishnavas will also be pleased. If we cannot become unalloyed devotees of the spiritual master, if we cannot make the spiritual master our life and soul, then we will spoil everything and will not be able to receive the mercy of either the Lord or his devotees. Ultimately, we will be deceived and not attain the Lord's service. 16. Is the spiritual master an ordinary man? The spiritual master is not a temporary, perishable lump of flesh and blood. Srimad Bhagavatam states that the spiritual master is the Lord himself. He is an incarnation of the Lord. Of his own sweet will, the spiritual master mercifully descends from the spiritual world to this world. He is eternally present both in the Lord's manifest and in unmanifest pastimes. He always acts as our guide and gives us proper intelligence. The spiritual master is an extraordinary personality. He is eternal and full of knowledge and bliss. To consider him an ordinary human being is to be possessed of a hellish mentality. To think like this is an offense against the holy name. The spiritual master is self-realized. He knows the science of Krishna. He is dear to Sri Chaitanya Dev. He has appeared in this world to deliver fallen souls like us. He is not a karma jnani or yogi. He is an associate of the Lord in his pastimes. He is a top devotee. As God is eternal, so is the spiritual master. The transcendental Cupid Krishna is God. The spiritual master is non-different from that same Krishna. He is a manifestation of Krishna. When we consider the spiritual master as non-different from God, we recognize that the spiritual master is worshipable God. Although he is the worshipable Supreme Lord, he is most dear to the Lord. The spiritual master manifests the pastimes of worshiper God. The spiritual master and Krishna are simultaneously one and different. The spiritual master is sheltered, and Lord Krishna is the shelter. The spiritual master is servitor God, and Sri Krishna is the object of service, the personality of God. The spiritual master is most dear to Lord Mukunda. In the vision of his self-realized disciple on the Raga path, the spiritual master is Krishna's energy and a manifestation of Vishnu's daughter. The spiritual master, who is dear to Krishna, is part of Krishna's internal energy. Lord Krishna is the supreme energetic. Krishna is the male or enjoyer, and the spiritual master is the female or beloved of Krishna. It is the spiritual master's desire that we all become spiritual masters. And the point from this purport here that we should all take away is that we are servitor gods. We are worshipable God when we become a spiritual master, but we should never think ourselves within that position. We should always think of ourselves as subservient to those who are spiritual masters and who actually get to serve the enjoyer God, who is Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. When we have this mentality, then we will be able to remain in service in one of our unique moods. But the moment we start believing or thinking that we are enjoyer God is the moment that we fall down. And but that's all of us. That's the position we're in this material world. And so the spiritual master sent from the spiritual world to rescue us from our miserable condition of life. And so he is the eternal well-wishing best friend, even though externally he sometimes may seem psychotic, because we are in fact the crazy ones in our material condition, and he is the only sane one. So he would seem very odd to us. Hence why many true spiritual masters are killed or rejected by their disciples. 17. Should we render service to the spiritual master every day? We should serve the spiritual master at the beginning of every year, every month, every day, and every moment. If we do not serve the spiritual master constantly, we will certainly face difficulty. The moment we forget our guru's service, we will forget ourselves. Knowledge imparted by worldly teachers or instructors produces insignificant results, but the bona fide spiritual master does not bestow such insignificant results. The spiritual master bestows real auspiciousness. As soon as the living entities are bereft of the mercy of this sheltered God, the spiritual master, they are captured by material desires. If an instructing spiritual master does not instruct us how to take shelter at a guru's lotus feet, and how to deal with him, then we may lose the most coveted jewel even after having received it. Chanting the Lord's holy names is the best form of worship. The spiritual master teaches us this process, but if we do not please the spiritual master, how will we gain the strength to worship the Lord? That is why I say that those who want to attain the Lord's shelter, who want real peace and freedom from material existence, should make the spiritual master's service their life and soul. They should serve the spiritual master constantly and try their best to please him. Then they will not face any problems in life. They will attain all perfection. Enjoyer Krishna is half, and enjoyed Krishna is the other half. The various pastimes performed by both are complete. Krishna is the complete manifestation of the enjoyer, and our spiritual master is the complete manifestation of the enjoyed. A spiritual master is one who personally demonstrates how to serve the Supreme Lord throughout life. That spiritual master is present in every object. We have no business other than to serve his lotus feet constantly. 18. Is it essential to associate and serve the spiritual master directly? We should certainly communicate directly with the spiritual master, through prayer. Those who do not wish to serve and associate with their spiritual master personally are bound to be cheated. Direct communication with Guru is the first step on the path of divine service. We should serve the manifestations of Guru in every entity. If we cannot serve the Guru, we cannot serve anyone. I must not hear anything until my divine master, Sri Gurudev, authorizes me to hear it. Many Christians and those who are unfamiliar with Vaishnavism and the path of devotion as outlined in the Vedic literatures hear the word guru and it really sets them off. Like, oh, guru, I don't need a guru. I have my spiritual master. But in actuality, spiritual master and guru mean the same thing. And so, yes, to take a guru, just a pseudo guru, a pseudo spiritual master who, has a shop in the mall, or, you found him online and he has, some number of followers, and he sits on a bench with sunglasses and he preaches and rides a motorcycle. That's not a guru. That's a pretender. A guru leads by example. That's what a spiritual master does. They lead by example. 19. Can we see the Supreme Lord without the spiritual master's help? The spiritual master is the Lord's transcendental temple. The Supreme Lord lives in that temple. Lord Sri Krishna, who is controlled by his devotees' love, manifests himself in the hearts of the spiritual master and the devotees. Scripture states, Shrutim apare smritim iktare paratam anye bhajanto bhavabitaha aham miha nandam bande yasya linde param brahma. Let others fearing material existence worship the Vedas, the Vedic supplementary Puranas, and the Mahabharata. But I shall worship Nanda Maharaj, in whose courtyard the Supreme Brahman is crawling. Nanda Maharaj was Krishna's adopted father when he appeared on the planet 5,000 years ago, seemingly in a human form, but his body is fully transcendental. But to a lot of people, he seemed just like a normal human because they didn't have the spiritual vision to see him as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But yes, Nanda Maharaj was Krishna's adopted father. He was the king of Braj. He had, thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of cows and the cowherd boyfriends. And these pastimes are extremely relishable when you start to understand who Krishna was and the just totally blissful pastimes that he enacted for the pleasure of his devotees while he was on the planet. Many people say that they are eager to see the Supreme Lord, but they do not understand that the Lord's darshan is possible simply by taking darshan of the spiritual master. Unless we meet the spiritual master, we cannot meet the Supreme Lord. Devotional service does not begin without first taking shelter at a spiritual master's lotus feet. The spiritual master is certainly the via media between Krishna and the living entity. Lord Krishna sends his best servant, his best associate, in this world to distribute his unlimited mercy. The spiritual master is the personification of that mercy. Those who teach us to serve the Lord's deity and to chant his holy names are spiritual masters. It is not enough to serve the spiritual master with awe and reverence only from a distance. We must serve him with a strong faith and love. The best example of this is the intimate service of Sri Raghunath Das, rendered to Srila Swarup Damodar Prabhu. 20. Will we face difficulty if we forget our spiritual master? The moment I fall down from service to my spiritual master, who is protecting me at every moment by keeping me at his lotus feet, I will become distracted from the absolute truth. As soon as I fall away from my spiritual master's shelter, I will be captured by innumerable material desires. When I run to bathe, I will become busy protecting myself from cold. I will spend my time running to perform activities other than my spiritual master's service. If I do not remember my spiritual master's lotus feet, the lotus feet of that spiritual master who has always protected me from the material concept of life, at the beginning of every year, every month, every day, every moment, I will certainly find myself in trouble. I will pretend to become the spiritual master myself and expect others to adore me. This is the material conception of life. It is not that we should worship our spiritual master for only a day. We should serve him at every moment. It's interesting, he mentions the process of bathing. A.C. Bhaktisiddhanta, Swami Prabhupada, he said that taking a cold shower is instant Krishna consciousness. And there's actually a scientific backing for this, because a cold, I think Wim Hof has talked about this as well. It stimulates the vagus nerve, which is the main nerve that goes, I think, from your brain all the way down to your tailbone, and it goes through every major chakra point within your body. And so when this is stimulated, it allows you to, through taking a cold shower, it allows you to feel the Lord's superior energy flowing through you. This is very important so that we can obtain, keep that connection with our spiritual master. And when we're serving our spiritual master properly, we feel the crown on the top of our head, those spiritual senses open up to our conscious awareness, and we can feel. And so by keeping our spiritual master on the top of our head, his feet there, and just realizing that we're here to serve him, then we keep that peace, so that when we're taking a cold shower, we're not affected by the cold, but we actually are in transcendental ecstasy when it's happening, because we know that it will connect us back with our spiritual master and the Supreme Lord. 20. Is the spiritual master present in everything? In order to bestow mercy on me, my spiritual master appears before me in various forms. They are all manifestations of my initiating spiritual master, who imparts transcendental knowledge. The light of the Jagat Guru is reflected in various objects. My spiritual master is reflected in each and every object. Worshipable Krishna is half, and worshipper Krishna is the other half. Their combined pastimes are complete. Krishna is the complete manifestation of the object of worship, and my spiritual master is the complete manifestation of the worshipper. All cognizant objects in which the reflection of transcendence falls are my spiritual master in different forms. My spiritual master is the one who always personally demonstrates how to serve Krishna throughout my life. He is reflected in the hearts of all living entities, and he is present in all objects as the Lord's subordinate. Thus he is present in every item. (22) When does the Supreme Lord manifest in the heart? If out of good fortune we can feel the spiritual master's presence in our heart, if we can see the spiritual master traveling and walking in our heart, then the Supreme Lord will manifest in our heart too. There is no way to attain the Lord's service other than by serving and satisfying that personality who always inspires us to offer our devotion to the Lord. 23. Will we be cheated if we do not take complete shelter of the spiritual master? We think that now that we have received mantras from our spiritual master, we are saved. But if we are not prepared to take complete shelter of our spiritual master, we will be cheated in proportion to our duplicity. 24. Who can deliver us from material absorption? Only the spiritual master, who is an intimate associate of Sri Gauranga, is capable of delivering us from death in the form of material existence. Now let us consider who is a spiritual master and who is insignificant. One who constantly serves the absolute truth, the supreme worshipable object of all spiritual masters, is a bona fide spiritual master. I am not talking about the guru who teaches vina or bodybuilding. Such persons cannot protect us from death. Srimad Bhagavatam states, Guru na sa syat sva jano na sa syat pita na sa syat janani sa syat daivam na tatsyan na patischa sa syan na mochayed yaha samupita mrityam. One who cannot deliver his dependence from the path of repeated birth and death should never become a spiritual master, a father, a husband, a mother, or a worshipable demigod. Srimad Bhagavatam 5.5.18. When we are illusioned, we fall into death's trap. When we have knowledge, we are delivered. The knowledge earned from this world is useless when we find ourselves paralyzed or dying. If we do not search after absolute truth, then we are dead matter. One who cannot deliver his dependence from death is simply cheating. One who induces us to become attracted to sense gratification is certainly a cheater. But we should have a spiritual master who protects us from all these cheaters. We should serve him every year, every month, every day, at every moment. This is a long chapter, so I'm going to break it up, I think, into 3 parts. But it's nectar, it's like getting an injection to the heart after taking tablets for so many years. The first time I read this book, I was just blown away. I had to read a little bit and then walk and just process it, because it's a lot. It's so much to realize that nearly everything we do has a material bent in life, and that we need to be reformed and restored to our natural constitutional position, which is a servant, a slave to the Supreme Lord. And so the spiritual master is delivered to us to show us that path back to God. I think somewhere it says, if we want to learn to be a potter, we have to learn from a potter. So similarly, if we want to go back to the kingdom of God, we have to learn from someone who's from the kingdom of God, or has followed the path to attaining that. And it's obvious by their lifestyle and their mannerisms, their actions, their activities, that they are fully devoted to spreading the holy names of the Lord. So thank you for being with me as I read this first part of the chapter. And hopefully you can join me for parts 2 and 3 of this. Okay, Hare Krishna.